glad that you could make it and do the podcast with me.
Yeah.
So thanks for making some time. Sorry
Yeah,
for the.
I've been wanting to do this with you for a while now. Like I've been seeing what you're doing, and I love anyone normalizing business education and theory in tattooing. You know.
Yeah, it's important for sure. And it's definitely a good time to talk about stuff because there's definitely a lot going on
Yeah.
in the tattoo world today for sure. So,
Yeah, I was just talking to a guy from the Netherlands, and he was just talking about how he's been trying to market himself more and do some of the things that I teach on Instagram. And the other artists at his shop just kind of like their thinking is like, if you have to market yourself, that's a sign that like your tattoos aren't good enough or something like that. Like that's the mentality, the mindset around it. And I'm like, man, that is such a limiting mindset around marketing. And but that's very common, you know?
yeah, I think there's a general um, understanding amongst true business people in regards to there's a definite separation between artists and business people. Generally, artists aren't necessarily great business people, you know?
Right. Artists need to think more like businesses, but businesses need to think more like artists, in my opinion. You
Right.
know, and it sounds corny or cheesy, but like the entrepreneur, like be both, be the best of both, because you need to be creative in business and you need structure and systems in art. And when they come together, like it's the hybrid tattoo artist, and that's what I want to see the future. I think the future of tattooing is going to be these hybrid tattooers that they are exceptional artists to a T, to a high caliber, but they also think and understand the business side of tattooing, and those are going to be the ones that excel.
Yeah. So let me give you a little bit of a formal introduction just so
Please, yeah,
everybody knows who you are.
yeah.
Obviously, a tattoo artist, also financial coach,
Yep.
advisor.
I worked as a financial advisor for a while. I have a license, but my license is not hung with a firm, so I'm technically not a financial advisor at this moment.
But you have background in that
I have
actually.
background in it. Yeah, yeah,
Well, that's good to know. And then obviously you have your own podcast as well, the Artful Dollar.
yeah.
So you're very focused on money management. And Ryan Roy, so how long have you been tattooing?
I started tattooing in 2009, and I tattooed full time for 13 years. And then in October of 2022, the financial coaching program that I lead, the Artful Dollar, also same name, it just took off. It just, we got swamped with tattoo artists because back in 2022, the market was still shifting and changing, but tattooers were busy and they needed help saving and managing their money, and they weren't doing it. And I talked to people 10 years into tattooing who have $1,000 to their name and they don't have anything to show for it. And so we were working with a lot of tattooers in that position, making good money, but didn't have any structure or system to save, deal with taxes, back taxes, paying down debt, saving for retirement. And we built a whole system and structure to consistently help them do that. And so I stopped taking tattoo appointments in 2022. And I haven't tattooed, I'd say, professionally. I've done a couple tattoos and, clients here and there, but I would say I haven't really tattooed professionally since then.
So your primary focus is just now coaching and helping other people be financially secure and successful.
Yeah. So then in 2023, we were just noticing a lot of the tattooers that we were meeting with were not in the position where they were making enough money to really feel secure. They needed more help with marketing education. I've been studying marketing for years while I was a tattooer and owning my own shop, trying to understand, what strategies I could do because it was a private studio. I had to find my clients, go out, hunt them, kill them, drag them home, and eat them if I wanted to keep a roof over my head. Um, and then in building the coaching business, I pretty much invested an Ivy League college education amount of money in marketing education myself. And so we started the Artful Marketer, which is the marketing program that we offer as well. And so we help tattooers make more money and we help them save and invest that money for the future.
That's awesome. I read a statistic, and I don't know if this is true, uh, but says that you built your coaching business, and after you did that, you were generating around $100,000 a month in revenue. Is that a true statement?
It's true. Yeah, we have had months where we've done over 100K. We did over $1 million in total revenue in 2023. We did just under a million in 2024. And it's because I understand. I'll tell you this: selling coaching programs to tattoo artists is not easy. There's a lot of people that are skeptical, and rightfully so, because there's a lot of bullshit out there. And being that the world of business and finance and marketing is new to tattooers, people are naturally suspicious of things that they're not familiar with. So I don't blame them. Look, if I saw me on Instagram and podcasts talking about these things when I was tattooing full time, if I saw someone doing that, I would think the same thing. I think, who the hell is this guy? What's his deal? Oh, he's just trying to make a cash grab. So yes, the company has generated, and I have a lot of employees. I mean, our weekly payroll is $10,000 a week. So I have a lot of people that help me do this. The more exciting part, like that's all fine and dandy, but the fact that we've worked with over 600 tattooers around the world, the fact that we have dozens of case studies of tattooers that have never saved $1,000 in their entire 10 plus year career, now have 20, 30, 40,000, now buying their first home, owning multiple shops, they're marketing themselves, they're having fun marketing, and they're having fun making more money, and they've completely transformed their whole relationship with business. That impacts their kids' lives, their spouses' lives, their families' lives. That, to me, is a far more exciting statistic, and the revenue is just a side effect of providing that kind of value for our clients.
Well, I really love that transparency because you're right. I'm one of those skeptical people because you're right. There are just tons of, I mean, you can scroll Instagram, TikTok, whatever, and you can just see tons of people trying to offer some type of mentorship program, and you get the full gambit. You can tell some of them are complete bullshit right from the beginning. And then some like yours, you're just like, wait a minute, this guy's really like putting a lot of effort into this. I recently had the Force of Focus on, which I was also skeptical about before I met the guy running it. And then like you, full transparency, and I got to really understand what they were doing. And it just took away a lot of that skepticism that I had and really put validity to what they were doing. The
Yeah.
fact
At
that,
the end of the day, don't believe anything I say. Just look at the case studies of people we've worked with and do the stuff that I give out for free. So on my YouTube channel, I give out tons of financial and marketing education for free. And I always tell people, I want you to book appointments without ever hiring me or working together. I want to prove to you that this stuff works if you do it. And then I deserve to ever work with you. But until that point, I don't even believe I deserve to work with you if you haven't gotten real value from the stuff that I offer for free.
yeah, I think that's very respectful because even still, I see a lot of comments out there with the skeptical viewpoint, and I think tattoo artists in general are just skeptical
Sure.
about that kind of stuff anyway. Especially there's such a shadow cast over any kind of education in the tattoo space. So I
Right.
think
Like
it's a difficult.
any kind of education, right? Yeah.
Yeah, dude. If it's not like a traditional apprenticeship, it doesn't fly, kind of a thing, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's great that you're doing that stuff because you're right. I just talked to an artist this past weekend in Hell City, and he came up and was talking to me, and he's like, I was like, hey man, how's it going? He's like, and he's a good artist and he makes good money for his tattoos. So I was really shocked when he told me, he's like, yeah, I'm trying to get by. I got $300 in the bank. And I'm like, what? Like, how do you have $300 in the bank, dude? I see what you're doing out there. Like, where's your money, bro?
And that's the reality, is like that's not an uncommon story. I hear that story exactly like that over and over again. I'm like, hold on a second. You're 35 years old and you don't have $500 right now? You pulling in 10K a month and you don't have some kind of retirement set up? Like, do you even know what is involved in retirement? It takes 30 years to save for retirement. So if you're 35, you got to get started today if you want to retire
Yeah.
by 65. Like it's not a oh, I'll get there some type of thing. And so that it's just so common, and tattooers work so fucking hard. Like they deserve to have that financial security, that peace of mind, like sleeping good at night, knowing if something happens to my hands, or God forbid whatever happens in life, because life will always throw you curveballs, like I can last the next 3 to 6 months just on my savings alone. That is a peace of mind that every tattoo artist deserves to have.
Yeah, because you just said something happens to my hands. We can't even predict that we're going to be able to have the longevity to make it to retirement age in this career. I mean, we have to depend on our hands and our eyes primarily, right?
Yeah.
One of those things goes before we hit that retirement age, then you're in
Yeah.
even bigger trouble, because then you have to try to find a brand new career
Yeah.
in a field that you're not familiar with, and you're starting all over. Hopefully, it's hard to make money with art already, like.
I had a tattoo artist on my podcast. She goes by the Tattoo Realtor on Instagram. And by the name of her Instagram, you can guess what happened. She had health stuff come up and her hands, and she just and she was a good fucking tattooer. Like, this is not someone that dabbled in tattooing. It was her life, and she just couldn't do it as a viable career anymore. And she works as a real estate agent, and she's making awesome content. And I just love that she's leaned into it and embraced it. But that's a very real possibility for anyone out there.
Yeah. Are you primarily focusing your business to tattoo artists, or do you financial advice for anyone really?
So the Artful Dollar program, we have had people that are not tattoo artists do that program. I've had therapists, psychologists, photographers, barbers, dancers. I've had all kinds of people, but it is 99% tattooers, because that's who my marketing speaks to mostly. And just hot tip for anyone out there, like the more you niche down who you're speaking to in your content, not just people that like tattoos, but people that like this kind of tattoo that are also into surfing and nature, or whatever your niche is, like that will speak louder to those people, and they're going to be more likely to work with you. So I speak very loudly to tattooers, and people outside of my niche also want to work with me. Our marketing program is 100% just for tattoo artists, only because I feel like while you could apply what we teach to almost any business, it's easier and more effective for me to just teach this stuff. I can make half the content for you, and then you just have to finish it off. And I do a lot of done mostly for you type of work. And it's just easier to just work with tattooers for marketing.
So what's been your biggest success story? Who's been your biggest, who's
Oh,
that
man.
client that you're the most proud of, and the
Yeah.
biggest feather in your cap?
Um, so there are quite a few. I would say two of the tattooers that I was particularly honored to get to work with, who have been through my whole Artful Dollar program. One is Nick Baxter. I have so much admiration and respect for him as an artist, and who he is as a human being. He's been through the whole Artful Dollar program, and gave us a great testimonial case study. Michael J. Kelly has always been one of my favorite tattoo artists, black and gray tattooer. And he, super talented artist. In fact, the conversation we were having one day on one of our sessions, so we do a lot of work around mindset, and mindset's kind of like that thing in your blind spot that you don't realize is like totally getting in your way because it's just out of your vision. Like we were saying in the beginning, thinking that marketing is something you do because your tattoos aren't good enough. Like that's a limiting belief, right? And you can operate that way, but it's going to be in your blind spot that's actually the thing stopping you from booking more tattoos. Michael said, he's like, I said, what's your relationship with tattooing? When you sit down to tattoo, who are you? And he's like, I am bold and I'm professional and I take risks. And I said, okay, cool. Who are you around money? What's your way of being around money? And he said, childish and immature. And I said, okay, great, perfect. So if you sat down to tattoo and who you were being was childish and immature, how would that go? How well would that go? He said, oh, that wouldn't go very well at all. All right, cool. What if you sat down to deal with money and who you were being was bold and professional? How well would that go? He's like, actually, that would be great. Actually, that I never thought about it that way. And so it's these reframes, these mindset shifts that in my opinion, make the biggest difference. And then it's the tangible systems, the automation, the management of money. So I teach an automated way of managing money so that your budget sticks to you rather than you needing to stick to it. Because I ain't sticking to a budget. I've never been able to do that. But I have a system that sticks to me. And that way I just simply can't fuck it up that bad. That's my whole philosophy, because I'm a knucklehead tattooer. I've always been, ADHD, scrambling. Without my systems and structure, my life just devolves into chaos. So those are the two tattooers but I've worked with so many. Bud McPherson, Chris Cockrell are just two people that I've worked with over the past couple of years. Chris Cockrell was a 20-year tattooer. Bud McPherson also tattooed a long time, traditional Japanese tattooers. And they had this idea like, oh man, can you really teach an old dog new tricks? I've been doing it this way. I don't take pictures of myself. I don't market myself. And I make marketing fun, because if you're not having fun with it, you're not going to do it consistently. And Chris Cockrell, I mean, we have up on my website, you can check it out, but I think he was doing, I don't know the exact numbers, so I don't want to botch it, but like somewhere in the 5 to 7K range on average. And he had a 12K month in just a couple months of going through our lighthouse game process and making content and direct, marketing and really creating conversations. That's ultimately what I want my marketing to do, is create as many conversations as possible, so that some of those turn into a tattoo now, some of those turn into a tattoo later, and some of them never turn into a tattoo. But if you don't get a no, you're never going to get a yes. And so I want to get as many no's as possible. I want to get as many people not interested as I can, because then I'm going to get more people that are actually interested. But if you're afraid to get a no, or you're afraid to bother someone or whatever, then you're really limiting how many people you'll ultimately reach with your marketing.
Yeah. So you're not only teaching people how to manage their money better, but you're teaching them how to make more money.
Yeah,
through the
that's
marketing
that's an
program.
artful marketer. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's super cool. I'm not very good at managing money either, dude. I could tell you, I never have been. Even though I tell this story all the time to people. Like when I was a kid, my grandfather really tried to instill financial stability in my mind, and I love that word, mindset. That's like a word that's always in the forefront of my focal point all the time. So that's a very powerful word. I agree with you. But my grandpa used to give me chores to do, and if he gave me $1, he'd give me 4 quarters, and then he'd take 2 quarters back, and I'd be like, "What are you doing?" And he'd be like, "You need to save half of your money," like, so he'd go put money in a savings account for me. But I would have never done that on my own. I'm still,
Yeah.
I've always contributed money to like IRAs and stocks and things like that.
Yeah.
Buy some cryptocurrency here and there, but you're never really you're always riding that roller coaster of those ups and downs in the stock market, and you never really feel too secure in like the future of that, I feel like. So
that's points to the emotional aspect of money. And money and emotion are inherently tied together, right? You make a bunch of money, you feel some type of way. And you get a big bill in the mail, surprise, you feel some type of way. And that feeling dictates your actions from that point on. And if you don't have anyone to talk to about the emotional side of money, like you can go to your tax advisor, CPA, your financial advisor, right? They'll help you invest money. But if you're like, what about like my fear of money, my scarcity mindset? I don't think it's possible for me to retire, let alone save an emergency fund. If you don't believe it's possible, then you're not going to take actions that are consistent. You'll only take actions consistent with your beliefs, right? So if you don't believe it's possible, you're not going to take actions consistent with doing that. And a big part of what we talk about is the emotional side, the thought process, the limiting beliefs, and really rewrite the script, reprogram. But it takes work. It takes building awareness, and it's not fun. There are a lot of parts of my work that are fun. Some of those internal work parts are not fun. That's why they're in our blind spot, because we've been spending our whole lives avoiding looking at it. And when you actually face it, it's uncomfortable, because you're faced with the fact that you've believed something that helped you feel safe and comfortable and familiar, and continuing to believe that is only going to hurt you. And so you have to give up the thing that has felt safe and familiar. in order to grow and expand your life, what's possible for you. And that process it's like a bit of an ego death type of an experience, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I like that entrepreneur word that you use too.
Yeah.
I've never even thought about
I
that.
heard someone say, I didn't coin it, but I heard it and I was like, that's what I want. I want to create entrepreneurs, you know? I think
That's a
the
good
world
word.
I think the world needs more artists. Artists are sensitive beings, and that's what makes us artists. And I think the world would be better if more artists were in the position of power, of influence to change the world. You look throughout the 60s and 70s and 80s, artists actually made some of the biggest impact on the way that society thinks. And I want to empower artists. So the best way that I can empower artists to make that change in the world abroad is to give them the tools and the skills and the knowledge and the mindset that they need to be successful with money. Because if they are, then they'll be in the position where they have the freedom, the time, the energy to make that kind of art that makes that bigger impact.
Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. That's why I started the business of tattooing, not the podcast, but long before this podcast, I've been writing in Skin and Ink magazine for a couple of years now. And I write the business of tattooing article in there. And that's all focused at helping, tattoo artists develop better business practices. And
So what do you kind of focus on? I'm just curious, like what do you like to write about? What do you like to talk about?
a whole gambit of things. I talk about just basically anything that I feel like the artists that I'm in contact with are struggling with on the
Yeah.
business side of tattooing.
Yeah.
So like one key aspect that I was really hot topic around when I first started writing was like intellectual property and protecting your ideas, because tattoo artists would come to me all the time. And in fact, it just happened today. I got a message on Facebook from an artist. He said, "Hey man, I've got this idea for a tattoo machine and I think it's a revolutionary thing." And I just automatically hit the stop button when people come to me like that. And I'm like, "Whoa, stop. Don't tell me your idea." He's like, "What?" I'm excited and I get it. And I'm like, "But yeah, you need NDAs. You got to get a patent
Yeah.
in place. You got to protect yourself, because there's a lot of pirates out here in the ocean that will just steal your ideas." I hate to
Sure.
say that, but it's the truth. That's the way the world works. So
Oh yeah.
I try to write about things like that and just educate artists on how to protect their business and their intellectual property and their ideas.
Gotcha.
Then it gravitated more into kind of the stuff that you're talking about, although I'm not a financial advice expert by any stretch of the imagination, and I would never try to market myself as that. But I do have some sense of how to manage money a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, I've never been broke in my life, so that's a good thing. You know what I mean? So I've been able to scale and build my business pretty successfully without incurring debt and without having to take out loans or seek investments from
Right.
other
You've
people.
done something right. So you have some experience and knowledge. And that's what I would say to people, like, take advice from people that are doing and living the life that you want to live. So a lot of tattooers are taking advice from older tattooers, but look in their bank accounts, look at their books, look at the life that they're living. And if they're not living the life that you want, if they don't have the things to show for the work that they've done, then maybe they're the wrong person. I'm not saying maybe they're perfectly happy. That's fine. It just might not be the right advice for you. So be very careful with who you take advice from, and make sure that it's people who have walked the walk and have the tangible proof results to show for it.
Yeah, I was just listening to Warren Buffett the other day, and he was saying, surround yourself with people that are better than you if you want to be better, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
it was I actually surprised I had never heard that from him before, because I listen to Warren Buffett all the time.
I
Well,
love Warren Buffett, and I think I also hear a lot of tattooers judging wealthy people, and obviously he's one of the wealthiest people on the planet. But if you watch documentaries about this guy, like, he seems like a fucking cool dude. Like, I would love to hang out with him. He seems like he's funny. He's got a sense of humor. He's a very caring guy, and his perspective on the world, I think everyone, no matter what your income level, just getting 10%, 5%, 1% thinking the way that Warren Buffett thinks would improve your quality of life tenfold.
yeah, but he didn't get that way by default.
No,
He's a living testament to the advice that he gives. You
he
know what I
is.
mean?
Yeah.
It's like, And so that's why I respect him. And you're right. His viewpoint on the world is pretty spot on.
Mainly, he
He
has a very long-term perspective. So he thinks very long-term, and then he takes actions in the short term that are in alignment with that long-term view. Whereas most people, I think, are just taking actions that are in alignment with how do I get to the end of the month without dying.
right, right. Yeah, so I thought it was cool, and ultimately, I mean, that's what that's what I'm hoping to accomplish with the podcast now is just surrounding myself with people that have a broader perspective and can impart that on me and our listeners, and really
Yeah.
help improve the tattoo community in general, by doing so. And I thought long and hard, I was like, well, I could get like all the famous tattoo artists on the podcast, sure. I feel like that's what every podcast in the tattoo space is about, and
Yeah.
so I want to focus on different things that are just geared at making artists better and having some transparency in relation to the business side of the tattoo industry, and kind of what goes on behind the scenes from the business side, from a manufacturer's perspective.
Yeah.
Um, so it's been very good for me. We're both involved with the APT now, so
Right. That's
that's
how we met. And
yeah,
I got I'm repping my shirt.
yeah. How's that
And
going?
it's
Are
going
you?
good. I was just elected to be on the board.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, congrats, congrats.
They asked me to run, and I was like, ooh, like I don't know if like my main hesitation was like, I'm a busy guy. I've got a kid. I'm a single parent half the week. I'm running a company. I have all these employees and clients all around the world. And I was like, I don't want to let the APT down. And I just talked to Tyson and Sean, the president, and a couple people, just be like, what do you really need from me? And I think what they're excited about is my expertise in marketing and growing a business. I've made a couple tweaks to the APT in my time volunteering that made a wild, massive difference in renewals and enrollment and everything like that. And so that's what they're hoping to have me contribute as a board member is helping the organization grow, because the more members the APT has, the more they can one speak on behalf of tattooers, right? That's ultimately, if anyone's like, what's the APT, the Associated Professional Tattooers? It is representation, no, sorry, regulation with representation. So we are against regulation without representation on behalf of the tattooers. So the APT is kind of like the megaphone voice of the tattoo, the craft, the tattooers. And I like to separate, there's the industry, but then there's also the trade, and then there's the craft. They're influencing each other, but they're also different things. The ABT is out there to speak on behalf of boots on the ground tattoo artists to make sure that the regulations being passed down the line are benefiting tattooing, because we do need regulation. We just don't want it being created by people that know nothing about tattooing. And so it's really there to protect the future of tattooing and to uphold the history, and educate people on the things that we don't want lost to all the changes that are happening. So I am so honored to be able to serve and help that organization that I believe is making tattooing better and leaving it better than you found it. So I'll put a big plug for anyone that wants to join, or anyone that wants to leave tattooing better than you found it. If that's important to you, you absolutely need to join the APT. There's a community of tattooers. There are weekly meetings, and there's ways to get involved very simply. And there's ways to just, pay it. It's like $125 a year. It's nothing. And even that makes a huge difference. So sign up today, join today.
No, I'm honored to be a part of it too. Congrats on making the board. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Uh, yeah, we're on a lot of the same meetings, and we're in the chat communities together. So I see all the stuff that you're doing out there, and obviously, I'm with Sean on the AFDO calls, and so the regulatory side of things, I'm very entrenched in. There's a lot of challenges in the tattoo industry for sure today. What do you think is the biggest challenge facing the industry in 2025?
It depends on, so, I ultimately, the regulation that's coming down the pipeline, I think there could be, so we've seen what happened in Europe. with inks and losing certain colors and the price of things, and some of the loophole or the hoops, not loopholes, the hoops that you got to jump through to be in compliance with regulation that might not be necessary. And some of them are unnecessarily expensive. All those things could greatly impact tattoo, the craft of tattooing, the trade of tattooing, the industry of tattooing. Um, and then, you've got AI, which everyone's terrified of. And the reality is that in the next 10 to 15 years, like, you're going to have fully automated tattoo shops, meaning you walk in there, you pick a design off a screen, you stick your arm in a thing, and a robot does your tattoo. And that's going to be a thing. I don't know who would want that. Personally, I would never want to get a tattoo from a robot. I love the personal experience of getting tattooed. Also, I got my hand blasted for 5 fucking hours. Like, to know that the guy doing the tattoo, his whole face is fucking, half his face is blacked out. To know that he knows the pain I'm going through makes it easier to go through the pain of getting tattooed. A robot's not gonna give you that, but there are gonna be those little Pinterest tattoos and those little bangers that, like, maybe you're not the most exciting thing, but like, that shit pays the fucking bills. You should be proud to do that kind of work. That's the bread and butter sometimes of tattooing, and it's those tattoos that allow you to do the bigger tattoos. So you're gonna see some challenges with that. And I think the other big challenge is just the thing that tattooers are facing right now, which is that there are so many more tattoo artists now than there ever were. And there are only going to continue to be more tattoo artists. And you're not competing against the, like, the 1-year tattooer that barely knows how to pull a straight line. No, you're competing with like the 20 or 40 other incredibly skilled tattoo artists that are just as good or better than you are, that are also in your city. And so how do you position your marketing to stand out so that more of the eyeballs that would otherwise go to those people end up going to you? And that's a skill that most tattooers know little to nothing about. And if I can learn it, I promise you, you can learn it. Like, I hated marketing. I hated money. I resist. That's why I became a tattoo artist, right?
Yeah.
If I can do it, you can do it. And it's just a skill. And once you develop the skill and the mindset for it, and you start to understand the psychology behind it, I swear to God, it gets fun. You start having fun making content. You start doing more tattoos, you're making more money, and your clients will mention it. I have people tell me all the time, they're like, yo, my clients keep coming in talking about how they really like the content, that they see the shift and they appreciate it. Your clients will appreciate it. People will get to know you before they sit in the chair. And your business will stand out in a saturated market.
Yeah. You're right. There's a ton of challenges. Actually, I was supposed to be in Rome tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for the World Conference of Tattoo Pigments, which is like, this is the 7th year of that.
Yeah.
What's crazy, I printed off the program for what's going on over 3 days, so it's all focused on tattoo pigments, and it's crazy, a lot of the stuff that they're looking at from a regulation standpoint, right? So they've got tattoo related allergies and immunotoxicology. Are reach limits for skin sensitizers reasonable? They're going into laser removal and how that affects tattoos. Successes and failures of tattoo laser removal. Myths, legends around tattoo laser removal. They've got tattoo ink toxicology that they're looking at.
You know what? Like, you see these like news reports that are just designed to push your fear button, around, oh, tattoo ink has, some sort of bacteria or something in it. But like, you don't hear people actually suffering from this, like, ever. Like, does it happen? I'm sure it happens on very rare occasions. And I absolutely believe we do need more regulation when it comes to the inks and what's in the inks, and more transparency in what's in the inks. But also, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And like, we also sell cigarettes, so like, what's in that? As long, it's just transparent. As long as you make it, let people do what they want to do. They're not lying about the negative impacts of cigarettes. People are, no one's freaking out about that. And yet we're freaking out that like one in some astronomical number of people could potentially get some bacterial infection from a tattoo when, we've been getting tattoos all our lives. I've never had anything. Never had any negative effect from a tattoo. I'm trying to think. I don't think I ever have.
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much about that as it is about the inconsistencies in the manufacturing of
Sure.
tattoo inks.
No, I think
I
it's a
think
great topic. Yeah.
that's probably more of what prompted a lot of this in regards to like, the FDA going out and pulling tattoo inks off of the shelf somewhere and testing them and finding microbiological contaminants in them, finding that there are things in the ink that don't match what the label says is in it, so.
All those changes need to be made. And I agree with you. The consistency, and I think that's exactly why we need regulation. And it's people like you that are involved in the distribution of, supplies and inks, that need to have a voice in those regulations, because you know more about it than anyone else on the planet. And that's why I'm so grateful that you and people like yourself are in the APT to help and facilitate that conversation.
Yeah, I wish more people were, because it's a little bit scary on the manufacturing side in tattooing specifically. It's a little bit concerning when you're talking to other people that are manufacturers in the space, or even, for example, lidocaine is a huge issue, I feel like, in our industry.
I've had a bad experience with lidocaine personally, and I won't ever use it on my own tattoos.
You had, like, it was used on you, or you used it on someone else and had a bad experience?
Yeah, I had on myself. I've tattooed using it on other people, and we all know that it's not fun to tattoo skin that it's hard and it's weird. But I went a little crazy with the what was it called? It was in the blue bottle, the spray.
Oh, probably Vasecaine.
Vasecaine. Yeah, I went a little ham with I was like, fuck, just spraying. I was like, yo, this shit's great on a stomach tattoo, and that shit healed so bad. And Bactine has some lidocaine, and that seems to be okay. I rocked out some Bactine on my hand for sure, but for some reason the Vasecaine one I had some issues with. Yeah.
Well, here's an education piece for you. So some lidocaine products have epinephrine in it. Epinephrine is what gives the skin that like orange kind of peel texture.
Okay.
So if you are an artist and you are using lidocaine products, I would avoid ones that have epinephrine in it. And you won't.
Bactine doesn't have that?
No, Bactine just has lidocaine in it. It's a very small amount of lidocaine.
Right. It's not numbing you out. Bactine will never numb you out, but it will take the spice, the sharpness off of it for a short period of time. Yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of it just kind of dulls it a little bit.
A little less spicy, yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's a misconception among artists and clients. Still, it's a very misused and misunderstood product, right? And it's a very dangerous product. It can be a very dangerous product.
You probably should go through some kind of training around using these products before being allowed to use them, right?
Well, and that's why I'm kind of glad for regulations in that regard, because I think there's going to be a lot of education that comes out of this over the course of time in regard. As I talked about it before, I was like, if you're a tattoo artist and you're using lidocaine products on your client, you're basically assuming risk. You're assuming liability and risk for the health of your client. And if you don't know how to use that product and you overdose your client on lidocaine and they drop on the floor because they didn't know that they have a reaction to that drug, they go into cardiac arrest or something because that stuff gets in their bloodstream and hits their heart and triggers something, who's responsible for that potentially? Are you prepared to lose your house, your shop, your everything that you've worked for your whole life just because your client wanted to be numb and you didn't understand the ramifications of that?
Yeah.
I see in the forums all the time, like yesterday I was looking in the forum and somebody was like, what's the best numbing product? And then people were throwing up links to these ones that have like 15% lidocaine.
Right. Oh my God.
And I'm like, dude, you can't use, like, you're crazy. Like, that stuff is so illegal.
If you're getting a tattoo that takes less than 2 hours to do, you don't know what real pain in getting a tattoo is, right? It's after that second hour, that third, that fourth hour that you're feeling the pain. Before that, it's a cakewalk. I mean, it kind of sucks, but like you can handle it. The lidocaine only works for the first hour and a half or so. Then you didn't build up any tolerance to the pain, and then you're in a world of pain. And I've experienced that. And again, while I'll never use it, it's just not actually, the juice ain't worth the squeeze, because you're sitting there and you're like, oh, you literally just feel like hot lava is being poured on you. And you're like, I should have never used this shit in the first place. Again, I got tattooed for 5 hours on I mean, the knuckle, the side of the hand, that shit fucking sucks. And I was just like, you know what? I'm glad I did it without it. And it was probably easier than had I numbed it up, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I'm thankful for regulations in that regard, because there's a lot of that shit that needs to get
Yeah.
kiboshed. You know what I mean? It's just not safe for us. It's not safe for us. And I keep telling artists, I'm like, hey, ask your manufacturers about what's in the products. Ask for their safety data sheets.
Yeah.
They should be able to tell you everything. Like my tattoo inks, you want to see sterilization certificates? I got those. You want to see safety data sheets? I got those.
Yeah.
Full transparency. You know what I mean? Like it's a safe product.
Yeah, we just want reasonable regulation. That's it. And I think that's going to help with, the quality of tattoo artists coming into tattooing. I don't think, personally, I don't believe that more tattoo artists is a problem, and people might disagree with that. I think it's the quality of tattoo artists coming into tattooing that's the problem. And I think if you had better regulation, there would be some kind of standard, not just on like the supplies and inks we use, but the the government is looking for insight into, they're looking to actually get tattooing qualified as a trade, a professional trade, like any other trade. And you could get access to grants and all kinds of other government programs if tattooing was recognized as a trade. Well, that has to come with some sort of standard as to, well, what is a tattoo artist and what makes a tattoo artist and how do you get into tattooing and education. And they're seeking guidance on those things. What does an apprenticeship look like? What does an education look like? Without the APT, you know who's going to come up with those regulations? The tattoo schools.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them, and I'm not going to speak on behalf of all of them, but most of them are just a cash grab by people that are more interested in how many heads can I fill in the class than what's the quality of this education. And so they're going to want to reduce the standards. And I do believe we need to uphold a high standard of entry for tattooing.
Yeah, and I know the APT is trying to work on some of that stuff as far as like formalized education for the industry on a state level.
And not to police it or enforce it, but just to be a recognized entity by the FDA, by the regulating bodies. Because again, if they don't listen, the APT doesn't have any skin in the game. They're not a biased. They don't offer for sale tattoo education, right? And so there's no conflict of interest. And I think that's why it's so important that the APT speak with the regulating bodies to create these regulations, because again, they don't have anything to profit or lose. They just want to uphold proper standards.
Right. Yeah. Are you involved in that part of things at all from the APT standpoint?
I'm learning bits and pieces of it, and I can't get into too much of it because all I know is from the one board meeting that I've been on, because I was just it was actually last night. The election just happened, but I'm really fascinated to learn about it, and there's a lot. All I can say is they're putting a lot of thought, time, and energy. And I will say this, the people that are in the APT doing, these are not your average tattoo artists. These are people with like going into PhD programs for, biology. And these are like scientific, thoughtful. They know law, they know business, they know science. These are some of the most exceptional tattoo artists that I've ever had the honor of being in the presence of. And that's who is coming up with this kind of stuff. And so they really, truly, the only thing they want is what's best for the future of tattooing, period. And I'm so glad that that exists. Imagine if that didn't exist. What would happen to tattooing in 10 years from now if you didn't have people like that gathering together? It's a non-for-profit organization. I'm not paid. None of us are paid. There's one employee. Julie, shout out to Julie for being the master overlord wizard of helping this organization of tattoo artists, keep it all together. But imagine what would happen in the future if we didn't have that. Who's it going to be left up to? It's going to be left up to people in government who they don't know anything, and the lobbyists that are going to lobby for whatever laws they want passed. And then it's going to be up to the tattoo schools who are, going to have the funds and the loudest mouths to get whatever regulation they want passed. And I don't think we want either of those entities creating regulation for the future of tattooing.
No, because like you said, the difference is they do have a vested interest in making things go one way.
The lobbyists and the schools, exactly. Whatever you want to say about them is, I'm not even commenting on that. I want a body of knowledgeable, experienced tattoo artists who don't have any skin in the game, but all they want is what's best for the future of tattooing. I want that to be the voice of tattooing.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get Sean Anderson on here because I feel like he'd be a great guest to have on the podcast.
Ryan too. He's I've had a couple one-on-one conversations with him since getting nominated and elected, and I don't know what my preconceived notions or thoughts of the guy. I mean, he's been tattooing forever. He's definitely, from the older school, and he's been on the board and president of ABT, but he is such a high caliber of human being. He is rooted in tradition, but open to new perspectives and embracing of that while honoring everything that makes tattooing great. That's all I can say about Sean. And it's been a privilege to just get to know him and serve with him.
Yeah, I feel like that's such a rare thing today. I feel like it's always been that way, right? Like the guys that are rooted in tradition are typically stuck in tradition, and like,
right.
Yeah, it's a very hard line, right? Like, in my experience, it's a very hard line. It's not very often where you'll come across an artist that has that progressionary thought process, and is open to those kinds of things, so it's refreshing.
And you can get so excited about new changes and things like that. And I'm definitely leaning more towards, open, new things in tattooing, but it's going to take both of those perspectives together. I'm glad I'm not in charge of the APT. I'm glad I have people that think differently. And that's what's cool on the board meeting calls. So many people don't agree with each other. And it's like the most civil conversation and respectful conversation you've ever seen. No one is calling each other out or anything. And that's what you want. You want that kind of civil discourse where different perspectives are welcomed. And then at the end of the day, we take a vote, and whatever gets passed, passes. And that's it, Yeah.
And I think it's important too for people that are listening that are engaged in the APT and have interest in that. It's also, I think, important to note that it's not just all business. There's a whole entire community website where you can post tattoos.
Which I helped get set up because I was volunteering with the membership committee. And so I have experience creating online communities. We set up that community so you get membership there. You can, oh my God, you want to do a guest spot? You got a question? You want to know, how do I put on this weird stencil, or you break something and you don't want to go to like tattoo shop talk on Facebook because you're going to get a whole bunch of beratement and weird answers. Go to the APT circle community, ask people that they're all rooting for each other to win. And I made a post today on Threads. It was like, the tattoo artists you're surrounded with are either rooting for you to win and supporting you in your growth, your personal and professional growth, or they're judging you for it. Right? Yeah. It's one of two things. The APT is a community of tattooers that are all rooting for you to win, regardless of where you come from, how long you've been tattooing, what your background is. If you're looking for that supportive community, man, you will find it in the APT.
Yeah, it's a real stark contrast. Also they have a lot of breakout stuff like the Monday Mojo meetups every Monday night.
Yeah.
Those are fun. Those are just
seminars just for, in fact, I think they have one with not the Sailor Jerry, but Sailor I'm messing it up right now. They have an interview here. Wait, now I got to get it.
Yeah, look it up.
I'll look it up.
We need a producer in the background pulling up all this stuff while we're talking.
Right, like on Rogan. Like, hey, Sam, or whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm hoping my podcast gets big enough that I can afford to have that sometime. Professional studio with the engineer in here. It'd be great.
Hell
It
yeah.
is a Sailor Jerry though, right?
It is, but not the Sailor Jerry that is not no longer with us. With her, he's from, I think he's from Canada. I want to get the right info, so I'm not talking out of my ass here. Where are the events? I'm looking. I'm on the circle. Oh wait, here we go. Ask the
Yeah,
Legend live with Sailor Jerry Swallow. That's what it is.
yeah, that's right. Sir,
Sailor Jerry
Swallow.
Swallow. He's a Canadian tattoo artist, often confused with the late American tattoo legend Sailor Jerry Collins. Despite persistent rumors, Swallow did not steal the name. He earned the nickname as a young boy after a playful encounter with a drunken sailor. So, yeah, they do these events. They get these guest speakers to speak on all sorts of different topics and history of tattooing. And this is exclusive for once you join the ABT. I mean, again, it's the deal of a century. It's $125 for a year. I keep pushing them to raise the price. Obviously, I'm the entrepreneur, but you get locked into that, and then you get to come to all these seminars and you get this community. I mean, it's kind of the best deal out there when it comes to online communities for tattoo artists.
Yeah, I love it. I got to be the Indiana State rep, so I'm happy about that. So that's
Nice.
been fun for me. Yeah, I love the APT. It's been a breath of fresh air for me because I tried to be. There's been a few, like the CTS tried to get formed for a while there. There have been a couple attempts at doing things like this, but the APT's been around for a really long time. And I just feel like it is truly the Alliance of Professional Tattooists, and it
Yeah.
really is. Like you said, it's a very safe space. It's a very
Mm-hmm.
progressive space. It's
Yeah.
very, very geared at.
It's a progressive space rooted in tradition, which is so rare, and that's what makes it so fucking cool.
Yeah, I love it. I love seeing the momentum behind it, and I love seeing guys like you involved in it. And it certainly strengthens the community to have, like you said, the diverse offerings of the community, like you on the financial side, marketing side, and the scientific smart people, and just you would never uncover those rocks on your own. So just
Yeah.
have all that collectively in one space is such a valuable resource. And like you said, it's so cheap to be a member of the APT. Like,
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, I'm like, if you are in America, if you tattoo in America, even if you don't volunteer or go to any of the meetings or anything or do anything with it, I'm like, why are you not just a member? Like, why don't you just pay your dues? And, everyone's talking about paying your dues. Like, why don't you literally pay your dues and just support an organization that is helping protect the thing that pays your bills? Why don't you just help it out?
right.
I could come on this podcast and talk about my business all day and promote myself. I don't get anything from the APT. I just love tattooing. I love that organization. And I have nothing to gain or lose whether you join it. I just think that it truly is something that benefits individual tattooers, shop owners, supply chains, or supply companies, and tattooing as a whole.
Yeah. So what other, obviously I know you're really busy, or you're a dad, you've got your podcast. How often are you doing podcast episodes?
I generally do one a week. Sometimes I think we're on episode like 66 now. I really just try to be consistent with it. Sometimes I do a solo episode. And so if you check out my podcast, so I do talk a lot about business. I also talk a lot about mindset. I'm big into spirituality. I actually feel like art, business, and spirituality are like I live in the intersection between those things. When I stopped drinking and putting powdered things up my nose 12 years ago, actually next month will be 12 years of sobriety. I started to build a relationship with a higher power, like they talk about in 12-step programs. And I'm like, I've heard about God before. I went to Hebrew school. I grew up Jewish and Catholic, and but they were like, no, you can actually create it to be whatever you want it to be. You can actually create a relationship with a higher power that serves you living a life of freedom and peace. And I was like, all right, that's interesting. Let's explore that. Again, skeptical tattoo artist. And that, I think, is one of the biggest things that changed my life was getting this broader perspective, putting faith in something. Because, dude, the world is scary. Business is stressful. You don't always know what's on the other side. You have to take risks if you want your business to succeed. And you don't have control over all the pieces on the board. The only way that I could do what I do and operate a large business with tattooers all over the world and so many communications and things and is to just surrender and just say, hey, God, universe, Gaia, mother, whatever you want to call it, I don't care. Like, just take me right now. Just guide me. Just show me how I can be of service to other people. Get me out of my own way. Relieve me of the bondage of self so that I can better serve you and other people around me. And at least that way, I stop worrying about my own damn problems. And it just gives me this peace. And so, yeah, spirituality, meditation. I read a lot of books on spirituality. And yeah, that's the other very big part of my life, I'd say.
Are you very structured in your daily routines?
No. I mean, I would say I go through periods where I'm more structured and less structured. I do generally meditate in the morning, even if it's just for 5 or 10 minutes. I do like to keep it consistent. I do a lot of journaling. I do prayer and meditation and journaling. Those are like my consistent practices. I do also once or twice a year for the past 6 years, I have participated in some plant medicine ceremonies, particularly with ayahuasca.
Okay.
I know in like the sobriety community, that's like a gray area. I don't recommend anyone do plant medicine, by the way. I can't recommend it. If it calls you, it calls you. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. You're not missing anything. And by the way, like I feel like you listen to Joe Rogan. He's just like promoting this stuff. I'm like,
Yeah,
what
for sure.
do you really know what you're promoting? Like, you do drugs and alcohol to run away from your problems. You do ayahuasca to face your biggest demons up front. And like, that's not for everyone. It's not a good time. Okay. It is a liberating time, but it ain't a good time. But my life has been about doing the work. Like when they say do the work,
Yeah.
facing my own limitations, facing my own beliefs, facing my perspective on the world that no longer serves me, and continuing to give that up, remove everything that isn't who I truly am. And ayahuasca is just one of those spiritual access to a realm of spirituality that has brought a lot
What
of
was
value
your
in my life.
experience like with that? Can you talk
Oh, I
about
can
that a
share
little
about it.
bit?
Sure. Yeah.
Did you go out of the country to do that?
I have been out of the country. I have done it in Colombia, but the shaman, I've only worked with the same shaman for the past 6 years. And I have done ceremonies in Colombia, but he also does them here in the States as well.
Okay.
And like I said, I've done it maybe once or twice a year for the past 6 years, and do like 2 or 3 days in a row every night doing it. Yeah.
You've done that many ayahuasca ceremonies.
So it's been like over 30 individual ceremonies.
Wow, that's crazy. I don't know that I've ever heard anybody doing that much.
Yeah, a lot of people will do it like once or twice.
Yeah, and that's usually
And
enough for them.
honestly, the first time I did it, I thought that I'm like, I don't think I ever need to do this again. And then it feels like it calls you, and you forget about like the second night. I call it the first ceremony, the first weekend. The first night was like not that. It was like interesting. I'd say it was like an introduction to the mother, as they put it. The second night, I turned into a woman and I became pregnant with my own inner child. And I was terrified that I was going to give birth and it was going to hurt. And I was crying and I was like, I wish to God I never should have taken ayahuasca. This was a horrible idea. And then I gave birth to myself and I didn't know what I was. And I had this like rebirth, ego death experience that was both terrifying and wildly liberating. So like, that's not a walk in the park. That's not a chill evening, you know?
Yeah. It's super interesting to me. I've never done ayahuasca, but I've like listened to tons of stories from people that have done it because I've always felt like I wouldn't say I feel it so much today, but I would say probably like 3 years ago, I was going through a lot of shit in my life, and I felt like it was an outlet that would be good for me to kind of deal with some of my shit that I was trying to unpack. I was going to therapy a lot, and I just wasn't getting there through therapy. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I wasn't cracking that nut. You know,
Yeah.
wasn't feeling better about myself really. So I started, like I heard Joe Rogan talking about that stuff, and then I was like, man, maybe I need to go do this stuff. And then I was terrified. I'm still terrified, right? Like I'm like, I don't want.
It's terrifying. Anytime I go to do it and like they give you that first cup, which by the way, it tastes horrible. There is like a moment of like, we're really doing this again, you know? Like it's not hell yeah, let's go. But
Do you get sick like all the stories I heard where you're just like puking your guts out and like,
yeah, sometimes you know, everyone's experience is very different. Everyone's experience. And again, that's why I don't recommend it to people. I'm not like, you should do this. Like, you probably shouldn't do this. If you're listening to this, you probably, there's probably other ways that the mother has intended for you to get your spiritual, you know, be on your spiritual journey. But if you feel called and you're someone that does the work too, like all outside of that, because I think it's not something that it just people think you're just going to be changed and you're just going to be this changed person. No, you're going to come back. It's going to teach you lessons. That's really all it's doing is it's teaching you lessons, and then you have to practice those lessons in your life. And if you aren't the type of person that's willing to do that, then I don't think you're going to see some like permanent change. But
yeah, because you're going to ultimately come back as the same person you were before you went.
you're going to come back and you're going to be like, wow, I saw this amazing thing. Like I really felt like I was down. I had this program downloaded into my brain. I felt like there was this psychic surgery being done on me, and inserted into my consciousness was this line of code. And that code was, you're always being safely guided. And before that moment in my life, I never felt like I was being safely guided. I felt like everything I did was about to be the demise and the worst thing. And just living in fear and terror and insecurity. And, you know, I put on a good face. I would, on the outside, try to look confident, but on the inside, I was terrified. And I still get terrified. I still have dark moments. I'm a flawed human being. I make mistakes. I learn from those mistakes. But in those really hard times, I'm always reminded I am being safely guided. And this breakdown that I'm encountering, which by the way is a blessing, because when you play big games in life like I'm playing, you know, being a father, volunteering, running a company, like when you play big games, you have big breakdowns. But I'm blessed to have the breakdowns. I'm blessed to have the problems that I have right now. I wouldn't be having these problems if I wasn't living a big, extraordinary, juicy, exciting life.
Right.
And it's in those moments where I'm in the breakdown, I'm stressed, I can feel the tension in my chest just gripping me. And it's like, you're being safely guided. For instance, I just found out minutes before I got on the podcast. One of the reasons we're late and confused was we bid on a house, me and my wife, and we got the house. And we've been house hunting for a little while now, and we bid on a house a couple weeks ago, or almost a month ago now. And man, we wanted this house so bad. I mean, this was beautiful, 7 acres. We had a barn and all this stuff. There's a couple things about it that weren't ideal, but we wanted it. And we thought we put a good bid in, and we were like so invested, and we didn't get it. And we just kept saying, like, we didn't get that house because there truly is something better. Absolutely. We trusted that. We had faith in that, even though we had no physical proof to say that. And the house, I am so glad we didn't get that house. I'm so fucking glad we didn't get that house. With the house that we got, like, it is so much more perfect. It's like $200,000 cheaper than that house. And it's so perfect in so many ways. It's more affordable. It fits what we need. Our kids are going to enjoy it. We got a swimming pool out in Rhode Island. And yeah, so it's just trusting the synchronicities. I'm a big Carl Jung fan. I don't know if you got into Carl Jung, but
Yeah,
he
yeah.
teaches a lot about synchronicity.
Yeah.
And I take a lot of action, I make a lot of mistakes, and I trust the process over and over, rinse and repeat over and over. And the time it takes you to overthink something and then get started, I've already started, done it, fucked it up, fixed it, and then done it the right way, you know? And by doing life that way, I'm uncomfortable all the time, but I see these beautiful synchronicities that come out of the dance of life. And I view my whole life as an art project. My whole life is a dance. The way I interact with people, the way I treat people, the way I spend my time, the way I spend my money, all of that is a part of this bigger art project. And the art project will be done on the day I die.
Yeah, I love that, man. I love that. It's yeah, I don't man, it's refreshing to hear you say those things because life is certainly challenging. And I think when I'm reflecting on my life, because it's similar, you know, like I've got the business I'm running, I've got 4 kids, you know, my kids work for me. That's a whole different level of
Oh
stress
my
right
God.
there.
Yeah.
You know, you got volunteer work that you're doing. You're in all these regulatory calls all the time. It's like, I asked if you're a structured person because I don't know how to be anything but structured because I have so much stuff that I'm trying
Well,
to
that's
deal with
it.
all the
I'm
time.
a chaotic person that relies on structure and systems because I would be the death of myself. You know, if I didn't have that, I've always struggled with time management. I live and die by my calendar. In fact, the only reason that I was late here is I literally fucked it up in my calendar. And so then it was a miscommunication. But like, if it's not in my calendar the right way every time, all the time, it ain't happening. Like, it needs to be locked in there. And structure for my money, structure for my time. And then I get more out of my money and my time when I have structure and systems that they become like, it's like bumper bowling. That's how I view it.
Yeah.
It just reduces the odds that I might not knock down all the pins, but I'm also not going to get a gutter ball.
Yeah.
That's what the structure and systems do for me. So anytime I want to fix a problem in my life, I never address the problem directly, ever. I always go back to what are the systems or the structures that need to be put in place so that this problem doesn't become an issue again. And I'm always going back to the foundation. And that's how I approach my business. I think that's how I approach tattooing in general. And I didn't even fully realize it for a long time. But um, what are the things that I need to put in place so that I can consistently do the thing? Because left to my own devices, I'm a fucking maniac and it's all going to fall apart.
Yeah. I just saw you doing some traveling too with some other tattoo artists. And
Yeah.
what are you doing something different? That is that just like for fun and leisure, or is
So
that something
that
that you're?
was we were planning it was with me and Dan Cuban and Mike Chambers and Ben Shaw. We all went down to Costa Rica to do a trial run of a retreat. We were we did announce it, and right now the retreat is on pause. So I think that's public information. I'm free to share that. But Dan Cuban is he's just a really inspiring and incredible thinker, creator. He's a fucking genius, dude. Like, the way this guy thinks about machines, it's no wonder everyone else copies him. Like, he really does. He's such an innovative thinker. But we wanted to create a retreat that is just a place for tattooers to tap into. The more emotional and spiritual, but also the systems, the reset, the hard reset. So I believe that retreat will be happening in the future. It's on pause right now. Um, but so yeah, I hope to do that and other retreats in the future. I want to do more in-person stuff in the future. I think people are starved for in-person experiences. And I've done talks at the Eden the Eden Symposium, the sessions talk. I've done a lot of live events, and there's just something magical about being in person with other tattooers, other people, that you just can't replicate. I do a lot of online webinars and stuff, and I make them fun, and I definitely try to break that barrier of being on screen. But yeah, I would love to do more things where I get to go a little deeper into some of the, let's say, weirder spiritual quantum physics
Yeah.
manifestation stuff that's really serving me. It's funny. I really appreciate you saying that you it's refreshing to hear that. I don't know why. Sometimes I get afraid to talk about this stuff, like because people are going to judge me or something like that. Like, believe it, I know I'm the marketing, but I'm afraid of judgment just like anyone else. I just don't let that fear stop me from taking action.
Yeah, yeah. So I had no feelings around it one way or the other. I try to live my life as free from judgment as I can, simply because I'm with you. I also fear judgment. So by default, I try to
Mm-hmm.
mindset. That's one of those things where I'm always thinking about my mindset. Like anytime I start thinking about judgment towards others, my mindset clicks real quick and I'm like, stop. We don't do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We
Well,
don't do that.
here's a great reframe for that because it's impossible to not judge, right? We are opinionated beings, but just knowing that every judgment is in itself a confession. It is confessing something about yourself. And so, one, knowing that when other people judge you, they're really just confessing some insecurity or some area of themselves that they haven't fully integrated.
Right.
And when you judge someone else, so that's my reframe. Anytime I catch myself judging someone, I'm like, wait a second, what? So like, one of my favorite things is like cringe. When you see someone and it feels kind of cringy, and there's that look. People probably think that about my content sometimes, right? I've seen other people and I think they're cringy. And I was like, wait a second, what is this saying about me that I feel this way? So I came up with this theory. This is my own theory. I've never heard anyone talk about cringe in this way. Cringe, and I don't know if you've done, I know you said you did therapy. I don't know if you've ever done like the inner child work and really tapping into creating a safe place for your inner child to
Yeah.
feel protected and taken care of. Cringe is your inner child sees something that they're excited by and they want to go play with. And then your adult programming shaming your inner child for getting excited about that. It's like, no, that's not, don't do that. Shaming, but that's what the feel. So the feeling of cringe is like these two counter feelings: your inner child getting excited, and your adult programming shaming your inner child for being excited.
Right. Right. No, yeah, I've done a lot of that stuff, so I know exactly what you're talking about for sure.
Yeah.
I recently was just talking about inner child work on Facebook and stuff like that. I've been trying to, I think one part of my, I think the biggest part of my personal, like, therapy never really did much for me. I just think therapists just, I don't know, I think you spend a lot of money to go sit down and talk to somebody, and then they're,
I would mostly agree with that statement. Have you ever tried EMDR therapy?
no,
Are you familiar with it?
no.
A lot of people have been talking about it. Everyone that I've talked to has said it's been life changing. I would firmly agree with that. It is. There's a book called I think The Body Keeps the Score, and I can't remember the author, but he talks a lot about the nervous system and the emotional ingrained, traumas. Like you feel it in your body when this thought or memory comes up. And so EMDR, and you can look it up, something rapid eye, whatever. I don't know what it's an acronym for. It is a way of refiling these traumatic memories in your brain into another part of your brain where it doesn't trigger that same kind of trauma fear response.
Yeah.
And it's not fun because you got to go into it. You got to
Yeah.
go into
Yeah.
the memory. You got to go into the fear. I've also done it for future things. As a business owner, you're always like, my business is going to fail. I'm going to go broke and I'm going to have to fire everyone and I'm going to be homeless in a week. Like your brain just does that no matter what. And I've actually used EMDR to help me with that fear as well. And where it used to be like an 8 or a 10 when, a client cancels on me or you get an email, or I fucking had a Reddit post, some tattooers that never worked with me before, and you can go look this up. If you want to have a fun time reading some crazy shit, you can look up Ryan Reddit. But they wrote this horrible post about me. They almost did me a favor because they went so crazy that it's like clearly unbelievable and like none of it's true, or there's weird bits of truth interwoven with total fabrication. When that happened, I was like, that's it. Tattooers are good. This is the next, big thing that all the tattooers are going to make go viral, and they're just going to hate on Ryan. Fortunately, I also did have a lot of clients I've worked with get in there and speak up for me. I didn't touch it. I was like, I'm not, but I had this, I'm like, that's it. It's over. and I'm just gonna live under a bridge, and that's just it. You know, you get in that crazy mind thought. I've used EMDR therapy to let go of that fear. It doesn't grip me the way, and that could be that, or anything could bring that fear up. I will say I'm grateful that Reddit post got made now. In the moment, I thought it was the worst thing that could ever happen, because it's just like, no one likes nasty things being said about you. But now that I've kind of moved past it, I've realized I have put so much good out in the world. I have made such a difference. The proof is in the pudding. At the end of the day, like I said, don't believe a word I have to say. Go out there and watch the videos, read the things, the testimonials of people that I've worked with. Believe what they have to say. Don't believe anything that comes out of my mouth. It proved that, like, I don't have to seek validation because that was a big invalidating, Reddit post.
Yeah, for sure.
And all these tattooers would jump on them. Yeah, fuck that guy. Yeah, I've hated that guy for years. Oh yeah, I hate his ads. I see him. Yeah, people judge me. It's okay. I get it.
And people can't wait for you to fail.
Oh my God, they just can't wait. It's crabs in a bucket,
Yeah, man.
There's someone actually doing something. Mr. Beast was on a podcast recently, and he's big on YouTube or whatever, the biggest YouTube channel. But he also does a lot of philanthropic work. He made 1,000 blind people, gave them sight, and he helps children in Africa escape child labor, all that stuff. And people, he gets death threats every day from people saying, "Fuck you, you're using all these people and you're doing this and all this stuff." And he said, if you want people to like you, don't help people. If you help people, and the more people you help, just for some reason, it's this weird psychological thing, like, people are going to hate you and judge you. And so that's what's happening. But you don't make a big impact without making big waves. And I want to make a big impact on tattooing and on people's lives. I want to change people's lives. I don't want to make it a little bit better. I want to fucking transform them and shake them out of the spell that they've been in that has them believe that they're not capable of anything less than an extraordinary fucking life. I want to fucking shake you and wake you up and have you realize that there's nothing stopping you from doing that except yourself. Now let's fucking do this.
Right.
And that's
I applaud you for that.
That's scary. That's
I applaud you for taking that leap, man, because that requires a ton of vulnerability, man, self-sacrifice, and just really sticking your neck out there, like you said, with that Reddit post. And it's crazy. You just think back historically at all the people that have changed the world, and they're all, even still,
at the time, look at Jesus.
They're all hated.
Nailed his ass to a fucking plank of wood. You know what I mean? People don't when people help people.
Yeah, dude. Martin Luther King, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Abraham Lincoln. I mean, it goes on and on. There's a huge
let me
list.
just be real clear. I am not comparing myself to Jesus Christ or Martin
Luther. But you know what? Ryan, I think
someone's going to make a comment and be like, did he just... No, I'm saying in general.
But I think it's okay. But it's okay to compare yourself to those people, because there's one thing that we all have in common. We're all human beings, right?
All human beings, yes.
And I applaud you for that, because I truly believe, as a human being, our duty as human beings is to help elevate human beings and make each other better. I think this world's in the place that it's in because too many people are focused on all the shit that you just said, instead of working on making themselves be a better person, and in turn helping other people, and not worrying what the fuck your neighbor thinks about your efforts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fuck them. Like, that's how I feel. Fuck them.
Yeah. If you spend your life dedicated to making other people's lives better, you will never have to worry about making your own life better.
Well, you know what? Here's a contrast kind of to that, right? I feel like I spent the better part of my early life worried so much about what everybody else thought about me.
Right.
That I was sacrificing who I truly was to try to make those people like me or accept me.
And I think that's an important distinction to make, is exactly what you said. There's people pleasing, and then there's being of service. And they can be like, wait, so I do think there's you need to set up boundaries. And at the end of the day, I think doing the inner work, like hearing you going, seeking therapy, seeking inner child work, doing one of the best ways you can help humanity is to, one, heal yourself, and work through those people pleasing, because I'm guilty of that as well. Oh my God, I just want, please just like me, please, you know?
Well, we all do it every time we make a social media post. You know, we go back. Ooh, how many people liked my
Yeah.
post? How many people commented? Oh God, I hope nobody said anything bad. Ooh, delete that comment. Delete that comment. I don't want everybody seeing that somebody doesn't like me.
That's why I leave those comments up. I'm just like,
You
thanks for the engagement. It's also
But
this once you make a lot of content, you just stop caring. It actually is really freeing, because you almost stop caring what people think of you when you make a ton of content.
right. Well, you don't have time.
You
Who
don't have
cares?
time. Yeah.
Who cares? Well, it's funny because when I strip away, and I feel pretty confident in saying this. I feel like when you strip away all of that ego that's attached to you and you just get down, if you go look in the mirror and you say, what is my purpose? What is my calling? What do I feel compelled to do? Really? For me personally, it's to be of service to other people. Like I feel like that's what feeds my soul the most, right?
Yeah.
If I exit my house today, it's why I always like to do the pay it forward kind of stuff. Just out of habit. You know, I always try to do something nice for somebody every day with no expectation of anything in return, simply because it makes me feel good inside to do those kinds of things, right? That's the payoff for me. And I feel like, dude, if I didn't have, I mean, this is a struggle for me, materialism, right? And just being attached to this way of life that I've lived my whole life. And how do you detach from that, right? I always have the deepest respect for people that are like true missionaries who just don't have a house. They just live on faith alone, and they travel the world helping people that need help, and somehow always find a way to have a roof over their head, clothes on their back, a meal in their stomach, and they have absolutely no money in the bank. You know what I mean?
Sure. And I think if that is someone's true authentic calling, and they live deep in that trust that they will be taken care of, and they're being of service, and they're not, it's not enough. I think some people think they should do that, and they seek that. I mean, even, look at the Buddha, right? The Buddha was an ascetic until he realized that asceticism wasn't actually giving him liberation. And, and then he, came up with meditating and his for 40 nights or whatever, and had this enlightenment. But he had to do it his way. And just because someone else is following that path doesn't mean that that's the way that you or I should aspire to do it, to be of service or make the biggest impact. And maybe it is. I'm not, I think at the end of the day, what I'm ultimately seeking in life in general is liberation, or moksha, as they say in Sanskrit. Like, I want real freedom. And that freedom looks like finding what your true authentic expression is and looks like, and just following that, just leaning into that. And when you look for other people, or like, oh, maybe it should be this way, or it should be that. Some people follow a spiritual path because they think that theirs should look the way someone else's looked. I don't think that's the case. I think you really ultimately spiritually have to find what yours looks like. And you know it when you see it. Like,
Right.
you know it, and you know it when you see it in other people. You're like, that person is clearly following their authentic journey. They're not just doing this for this or that reason. They're only doing it because they feel called to do it. And that excites me.
Yeah, I think I just struggle with spirituality a lot, and just what my definition of spirituality is, right? Like the whole purpose of life concept. It's like, certainly the purpose of life is not just to be born and die, right? The purpose of life is to serve. Well, my purpose of life is to serve other people enough to where I've left a strong legacy behind, and I've helped to advance the next person, right? And I think that carries through a lot of things in life, in organizations, through churches, through you know, trade organizations. I mean, I just think a lot of that, like the APT, for example, is a good example. I mean, it's a community that's geared at strengthening the community, uplifting the community. So I think, like, in the most simplistic form, that is the purpose of life, is to leave the world a better place than it was when you entered it.
Sure.
And I
And
mean,
yeah, you don't have to have a definition for spirituality. In fact, I actually think that can be almost dangerous. I think religions tried to define what spirituality is, and then we can all see how well that has gone. And I'm not against any particular or even organized religion in general, but needing to define it means that you're excluding everything that doesn't meet your definition, and
right,
that's when we run into problems. So I
right,
think have it be a discovery, have it be to me, spirituality is an adventure, and I don't know what is around the next corner,
right,
and I don't know what it's going to look like tomorrow, or what it even should look like tomorrow or a year from now. But I am curious. That's why I consider myself a seeker. That's it. I'm a spiritual seeker. I'm seeking, meaning I don't know. I don't know. I don't know anything. I'm seeking. I'm learning. I'm sharing what I'm learning. But fuck, the shit that I learned yesterday might not serve me today or tomorrow. And so I always try to assume that beginner's mind. I never try to claim like I have some truth for anyone. I always tell people, if I say something and you try it on like a jacket. Wear it, look in the mirror. If it feels good and it looks good and it makes you happy, then go out and wear it. But the minute you don't like it anymore, fucking throw it out.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we could have that conversation forever, dude.
Yeah, yeah. I do have
I
a
love
call that
talking about this stuff.
I have to hop on. Actually have a client testimonial. I every week I take one client testimonial every week, because we're trying to record all of them, but I can't meet with everyone. But yeah, so I have a client to go record her experience of going through the Artful Dollar program, which I'm going to do now. Dude, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much. And if anyone wants to check out, again, my podcast, The Artful Dollar, on all platforms, follow me on Instagram, Ryan Roi, RyanRoiTattoo. That's pretty much where you can find all my stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna dial in with you offline here, because I could use some financial advice. I feel
Oh,
like some
dude, let's talk.
strengthening,
I would
bro.
be more than happy to chat and just
Yeah,
take a
man.
look. I like to take a look at where we're at now. Where do we want to be in 10, 15, 20 years? And then what's missing, that if we were to put that in place, we'd be in the best position possible to hit that goal. And if it's something that I can help you with, great. If it's something that I need to point you in the right direction, perfect. And, that's so, yeah, I'd be more than happy to have that conversation.
Yeah, dude. Well, hey, man, I appreciate your time today, and I look forward to continuing working with you in the APT, and
Absolutely.
building a friendship with you outside of the parameters of
Absolutely,
that.
man.
And
I
good.
feel we're on the same wavelength. I appreciate that.
Yeah, dude. Congrats on the new house. That's
Thank you.
exciting.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you. Super
and
exciting.
again, congrats on the board election. That's exciting too. You got a lot of stuff ahead of you, so that's cool, man.
Yeah. Thank you so much, man. Be
All
well.
right, brother. I will talk to you again soon.